Fallout New California is a mod with a great premise and promise. This is the pinnacle of New Vegas modding. It in and of itself is a game and story different from New Vegas. But is it perfect? Let's see. But before that, hats off to the developer who worked on this game for over 7 years. Let's start with one of my major complaints, and that complaint is that of the performance. This game has massive performance issues, loads of frame drops, bugs and crashes. The bugs are very common, so common that I regularly fell through the ground, jumped to another dimension and couldn't interact with Ben or Kira throughout my whole food. Yes, that's right. I couldn't even talk to two of my companions throughout the game. Even once. About frame rate, freaking Doom. The game released in 2016, not the 1989 one, runs at 60 FPS in my computer, whereas this game couldn't even stay over 40 frames at times. I don't know how the other YouTubers get it to work so well, but it was really annoying for me. This game has worse performance issues than Fallout 76. Let's continue with the next part, that is graphics and game design also. Performance complaints aside, the graphics is good compared to Fallout New Vegas. Even though it's a mod, the graphics have improved drastically over the normal base game. That is, with Rudy NB. Without the Rudy NB, this looks more or less the same. The trees and the landscapes are very well designed. The trees especially and with the leaves are really colorful. The textures are more or less the same. The new in-game items do look good. The interior of Vault 18 was one of my favorite part in the whole game, as we can clearly say that the interior of this vault was more welcoming than it was haunting. Maybe it's because it was actually a control vault, not one of Vault-Tech's experiments. I liked the most parts of the design as well, even though a few parts were copied from New Vegas texture. As for an example, I can give the NCR headquarters look exactly like that of the Nipton Town Hall, and the interiors look exactly the same as that of the Winnie and Vance Casino. Well, that's enough about graphics and performance. Let's get into the meat of this video. Part 3. Gameplay and quests. The gameplay and quests are nothing phenomenal. Minor spoilers ahead though, be careful. There were no quests in Fallout New Vegas that you could complete just by speaking to someone. That is, by using skill checks or speech checks or special checks. You have to go there and kill something. Most of the quests were go there and kill something quests. The most notable exception being the quest in the prologue, which I would come back to later. What I hate most about this gameplay is that killing people has no consequences for most part, as they just end up lying unconscious and do not even die. Next, it must be said that the game is not open world, it's quite linear and there are very few side quests. The side quests were mostly kill them and get it kind of quests. Even the main quests were mostly like that. You have just to go there and kill somebody. Then this doesn't make sense in a Fallout setting, but the quests were really interesting. Remember, there was a quest in Fallout to solve a murder. Similarly, in finding Boone's wife, I had to investigate. I didn't have to enter combat in those quests. And this whole time, I had to just continue killing people. Nothing else. Just kill people and the quest is complete. Bring something on them and do something to them. That's it. That is most of the quest. And it must be said that it felt more of a code than exiting the vault through Pine Heaven. The next 3 or 4 hours, it felt exceedingly boring. I wanted to leave the game because it was so boring. You just have to kill waves and waves of raider for 4 hours, which is really boring once again. I played as an energy weapons character, and it was not until the very end that I found Plasma Cassette, the only good energy weapon in the entire game. I had to play the whole game with a laser rifle. Don't get me wrong, the Gnosis gun was also great. I found it in the early game, but it used NOS energy cells, which weren't just enough to kill all the enemies in the game. After leaving Pine Haven, I said earlier it was mostly fight for 4 hours. The prologue quests on the other hand were really interesting, but that's about it. We are left to find interesting quests after that, and to be honest, there aren't very many interesting quests after that at all. Story. Here also the prologue shines. You coming from an unknown tribe, threats looming over your head, the history of Vault 18. These things were really interesting. This was by far the best part of the whole mod. And let me just say, you should talk to everyone in the vault. They all have interesting things to say and do complete all the quests in the prologue. Throughout the prologue, I never went into combat. I don't think you have to go into combat either. And I must say, the writing was really crisp at that part. It was as crisp as a baby left in a closed car in direct sunlight in a hot summer day. But this does not last long. After you leave the Vault 18 and travel to Pine Haven, there's absolutely no interesting quest after that. The only one interesting quest and the part of the most interesting part of the story was if you are captured by the raiders. And I won't say what happens next, but it is by far the most interesting part of the whole game. After the prologue, that is, the main story could either be said was mildly interesting at the best and just somewhat okay at its worst. Thing about this mod is the story you find out is much more interesting than the story you create. That creates a bland gameplay mechanics and very poorly written story structure. Let's get on to the next part, that is characters. The characters, on the other hand, are really interesting. The thing about that is you do not talk to them very often, and there are only about a dozen or maybe 16 to 18 characters you could talk to throughout the whole game. But the dialogues are well written and the voice acting is very nice. I would have liked to talk to more characters if they were in the game, but they were just too few and far between. Dr. Rossman, Kiraman, and Maria in the prologue were genuinely well written and interesting. And talk to the computer, that is Maria. She is also really funny. And Chevy Bragg was also an interesting character. Other than that, the character design was also great compared to the doll-like characters of Fallout New Vegas. Dr. Rossman looked like a cigarette butt, and Senator Toville's face looked like a super mutant tried to tear his face off because he talked too much, which could be reasonable to say the least if you know the character of Senator Duville. Now, let's get to the last part of the game. Should you play the game? Sure, the prologue itself is worth downloading the mod for, and it is free, so you shouldn't have any problem with the game. The rest of the mod, although, is pretty meh, and it is not as boring as Fallout 4, but this mod is not groundbreaking either. It's pretty okay, and not necessarily a Fallout game, as it lacks in choice and character building. It's more or less ordinary to compare to most other good games. If you like Fallout New Vegas Combat, you will like the game. And if you do not like Fallout New Vegas Combat, but just want to play a good mod for Fallout New Vegas, be sure to check this out. And this mod should be good enough for you to re-download the game and play it for some time at least.